Parak Tazayin. We're in the middle of the parak. Oh, shalom aleichem. We're continuing the story of Eliezer finding a shidduch for Yitzchak, the story of Rivkah and Eliezer. And now Eliezer found her, and they agreed to marry her to Yitzchak, and they're on the way back home. So it says in the Medrash, B'shei shoyis b'yoyim yotzo ha'eved mechoran. At 6 hours into the day, the slave left Haran. Eliezer left Haran to go back to bring Rivkah back to Yitzchak. And he took Rivkah and Devorah, who was her wet nurse, and he mounted them on the camels. The Radal brings a Gemara in Psachim and says, why did he have to mount them? Why couldn't they go up on their own? Because the derech of women is that they're very scared when they're trying to get up onto an animal, so they need some help to be mounted on. And so that the Eved Eliezer wouldn't be alone with Rivkah at night, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a nace that nikpatz ha'aretz, the land jumped in front of him, and there was kfitzas haderech. And he got to Hebron in 3 hours at the time of around mincha time. So the marshal we said last week, if the day begins at 6 and ends at 6, so if he left around 6 hours into the day, it was about basically midday, about 12 o'clock in the midday, noon. So he got there about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, around mincha time. Because Hashem made a nace that he got there in 3 hours, so that there wouldn't be a problem of yichud between Eliezer and Rivkah.
How long would it normally take?
So we said last week that normally it takes 17 days.
Wow.
We said that in the beginning of the parak.
Where's the Haran today?
Where's Haran today? They know where it is. It's I think it's still called Haran. It's Be'erich in ISIS country.
It's in Iraq. Yeah, it's in Iraq?
It's in, I think it's in Syria.
Syria?
Yeah. Be'erich in that area where ISIS is ruling. Not like in the northern area of where the Tigris is. I forgot the name of the river, but there's a river that comes off a tributary of the Tigris,
Yeah.
and Haran is off of that river. I forgot the name of the river. So in the northern Mesopotamia.
It's near Turkey?
Yeah, Kurdistan, that Mamish where the fighting is now.
So he made a 17-day journey
In 3 hours.
3 hours.
Right.
Wow.
So Hashem made this nace because he didn't want that there would be a problem of yichud between Rivkah and Eliezer. Now the Mepharshim speak out that the etzem, there could be that there's no real problem. The Radal says it could be there's no real problem because Eliezer came with 10 camels, meaning he came with a whole entourage of people. And Rivkah's coming back with Nairi Saha, with all her maid servants and her wet nurse, whatever. So it's a bunch of men, a bunch of women. There's no problem with yichud b'chal. So he said Stam, it could be, the Radal says it was Stam Chumra, Lav Dafka, that was it because of a real chashash yichud. One of the other Mepharshim say that it could be that we're going to see in a moment that Eliezer was chashud. He's a person that you could suspect him of doing some bad stuff. So with such a person, the halachas of yichud are more chomer. You can't be, even if there's more people around, you can't be alone with such a guy. So could be that was the chashash. I saw that in a sefer called Alei Zayis on the Zayis Ranan on the Yalkut Shabbat in Parshas Chayesara. It was written by Rav Yaakov Moshe Kanner Shlita, who's a Rav in Toronto. He says this svara that because Eliezer, we'll see that Eliezer is a person who's chashud.
So despite his high madrigah?
We're gonna try. Hopefully, we'll get that. We should get that, but we'll see. There's a lot of different explanations of who Eliezer was and where he's coming from. And was he a good guy or a bad guy? Some interesting things. Okay. So they got there. By the way, according to some Mepharshim, when they got there, Yitzchak was actually standing on his head. He wasn't standing on his feet. He was standing on his head. It was upside down. And hopefully we'll speak about that in Parak Lamed Beis. Why was Yitzchak upside down? But according to some Mepharshim, Yitzchak was upside down on his head because he was coming from Gan Eden after the Akedah. He went to Gan Eden to get healed. So he was coming. Mamish just came from Gan Eden. So he was falling this way. So it's a very funny thing that some Rishonim say this, but Yitzchak was standing on his head and it was like a weird thing. V'yatza Yitzchak le'espalal tfilas mincha. Yitzchak came out to daven mincha. Shenamar, it says in the pasuk, v'yatza Yitzchak l'suach basada le'es erev. Lefnais erev. And Yitzchak came out to the word lasuach literally means to speak in the field, le'es erev, in the evening time. Ve'ein sicha el tefillah. This lashon of lasuach, to speak, doesn't mean literally to speak, but it means to daven. Shemar, it says in the pasuk in Tilim, tefillah le'oni ki yatov v'lefnei Hashem yishpech sichoi. Tefillah, when a poor man is yatov, when he's wrapped in his talis, v'lefnei Hashem yishpech sichoi, and in front of Hashem, he's spilling his speech. What does it mean, the speech in this context? It obviously means his prayer, his davening. Right. So Yitzchak was davening over here. Stam, I saw something very interesting last night. Where is it? Somebody just yesterday donated the sefer to the shul. Chud Shel Chesed from Rabbi Yomi Izmir. Our good friend Rabbi Yomi Izmir. So right here in Parshas Chayei he makes an interesting deal. It says in the pasuk, it says, Vayetze Yitzchak l'suach basada lefnais arev. Yitzchak came out to speak in the field in the evening. Vayisa eino vayar. He lifted his eyes and he saw. V'hinei gemalim boyim. And behold, there are camels coming. So there's camels coming. What about Eliezer and his people and Rivkah, his future wife? He looked and that's what he saw. He saw the camels. He didn't see this all these people coming. That's what he asked. So he says very geshmak teretz. Because we said that what happened was that Eliezer last week we said Eliezer left 12 hours into the day and he got to Haran in 3 hours. And then now this week we just saw that the next morning he left at 6 hours into the day and then he came back 3 hours later. So, and we said that it's a journey of 17 days. So the guy left yesterday in the afternoon, and now he's coming back the next day in the afternoon from what would be a 17-day journey. It doesn't make any sense. So when Yitzchak saw two 17-day journeys, it doesn't make any sense. So when Yitzchak sees him coming back, of course he wouldn't think that it's Eliezer and Rivkah. He assumed, there's a bunch of camels coming or something or whatever. He didn't realize who it was until the mamish came close, and they was like, it must have been some sort of nace. But before, the logic would tell him that that's not what happened. That's what it says in the sefer. Chud Shel Chesed and Parshas Chayei. But I wanted to tell him maybe you could say a different word. If you learn like these Rishonim that said that Yitzchak was standing on his head, so you could say that, he was standing on his head, so all he saw was the feet of camels coming. The people were mounted on top of the camels, so you couldn't see the people, you only see feet of camels. So you thought there's a bunch of camels coming. Maybe, I don't know. Stop. Okay. We'll leave the Chumash a little bit later. Okay.
I never used his yoga exercise.
What?
He did yoga.
He did yoga. Okay.
Very interesting. He went out at 3 o'clock to pray.
Yeah.
Before Flag, which is Kilu the time for Mincha.
Right.
But he was a little bit earlier.
He didn't daven mincha right before Shkia.
Yeah, he did that before Shkia.
Right. It happens to be that the Radal wants to bring a raya to the opposite. He wants to bring a raya that he was going to daven mincha ketana. Because he's going out to daven mincha at 3 o'clock, let's say, and mincha ketana is 3:30, so maybe he's doing his A Chosson or something. He wants to bring a raya that from here you see that mincha ketana is the ikr. I don't see a raya that mincha ketana is the ikr. Maybe he was dafka going out at 3 so that he could chop right mincha before mincha ketana. So I didn't want to say this Radal, but once you mentioned the idea.
I heard an explanation that the Yitzchak was actually meditating.
Meditating.
Right, he was getting his burden. Getting ready to start.
Okay, I mean the Gemara says that the Yitzchak was the one who was Gemara in Brachos in the beginning of the 4th parak. Says the Yitzchak was the one who was Mesakin Mincha. How do we know that? It brings this pasuk. So the Gemara definitely understands that it's talking about literally davening Mincha. Right. That's the source of the tefillah of Mincha, according to one opinion in the Gemara over there.
Could be with meditating upside down.
Meditating upside down, yeah. Okay, right there. Rabbi Shmuel says, Omar Avraham liYitzchak b'nai. Avraham Avinu said to Yitzchak his son, Ha'eved hazeh chashud al haveres hu, umirma biyadai. This Eved, Eliezer, he's chashud al haveres. We would suspect him of doing sins, of impropriety. Who umirma biyadai, and there's trickery in his hand. Shenamar, it says in the pasuk, Canaan biyadai moizne mirma lashayk ahev. Canaan, in his hands are the scales of trickery to cheat the people that he loves. So in Canaan, the Radal says is a code word for all slaves. So even if Eliezer was lavdafka from Canaan or wasn't Canaan himself, but it means all slaves, and Eliezer was a slave. So you see that slaves are tricky people, and they're chashud on averes. So Avraham Avinu is telling Yitzchak that maybe Eliezer is chashud on averes. Re'ei shema naga batzinar. So check out, see maybe Eliezer touched the pipe. Naga batzinar is sort of a euphemism that maybe he did some inappropriate stuff with Rivkah on the way. So maybe touch the pipe is a euphemism for that. Rather, what you should do is bring the girl into the tent, and take out her bisulim with your finger. The one ger says im tira bisulim, see if you'll see bisulim, or the other ger says im tahira bisulah, if she's pure with her, in regards to her bisulim. Harehi l'cha mipi agvur, then she's yours by divine decree. Hashem wants you to marry her. So what did he do? Yitzchak brought her into the tent. And Yitzchak took out her bisulim with his finger. And he showed him to Avraham Avinu. And afterwards, Yitzchak married her. It says in the pasuk, Yitzchak Sara imai. And the end of the pasuk says, so it says, Yitzchak brought her into the tent of his mother Sarah, and then it says, then he married Rivkah, and she was his wife, and then she loved him. Right? So first it says he brought her into the tent, and then it says, and then he married her. So why did he bring her to the tent if he wasn't marrying her? Elamai, this is where the Radal says it. Elamai, first he brought her into the tent to check if she's pure, and then afterwards, when he saw that she was pure, he married her. The Radal points out that the Gemara says that. Okay, whatever. The Radal says that it sounds like over here that Rivkah must have been over 3 years old, because the Gemara says in a few places that if a woman's bisulim come out before she's 3, so they grow back. Right? So the Radal says it must be that Rivkah was over 3 years old. So in one place in Mesachas Seifrim it says, we mentioned Mesachas Seifrim last week, it says that she was 3 years old and 3 days when she left her father's house. So you see that she was over 3 years old. And Rashi and Chumash says that she was 3 years old also. So it could be it's going like that. Seder Olam also says that she was 3 years old. And Taisus in Yevamos brings from Rabbeinu Shmuel A Chosson, the father of Yehuda Chosson, that says that she was 14 years old. So it's a famous machlokes if how old was Rivkah when she got married? Was she 3 or was she 14 years old? Well, it's a famous zach. I saw once. There's rayas both ways. It's a Taisus in Yevamos on Samach Aleph and Beis, and other places also they talk about it. I saw once a very interesting way of reconciling this machlokes. How old was Rivkah? Was she 3 or was she 14? I saw this. First I saw it in the Sefer Mayan Beis HaShoeva from Rav Schwab. He brings it b'shem somebody named Rabbi Michal Forschlager, who was a rabbi in Baltimore about 100 years ago. Rabbi Michael Forschlager. They recently printed his farm. I think it's called like Teres Michal, something like that. It came out like about a year ago. But Rabbi Michal Forschlager answers like this. He says that we know that when Yitzchak had the Akeres Yitzchak when he was 37, and then right at that point, Avraham Avinu had a special nevuah brought in the end of Parshas Vayera, the end of the Kriyas Torah of the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Avraham Avinu had a special nevuah that the Besuel gave birth to Rivkah right at that time. So it sounds like right after Akedah Yitzchak, that's when Rivkah was born. And then 3 years later, it says in the pasuk that Yitzchak was 40 when he got married, and he was 37 by Akedah Yitzchak. So it must be that she was 3 years old, right? So he says, no, the pshat is like this. Really, she was 14 years old. She was really born beforehand. But what happened was, by Akedah Yitzchak, that's when Sarah died. Sarah died by Akedah Yitzchak. Remember, that's why Parshas Chayei Sarah is right after the story of Akedah Yitzchak. And when Sarah died, so he says that her neshama went into Rivkah, and now Rivkah became a gilgul of Sarah. And that only happened 3 years before she got married. So her body was 14 years old, but the fact that she was a gilgul of Sarah, then Klapedah, she was only 3 years old. And then I found that afterwards that Rav Chaim Falaji says the same teretz. I forgot exactly where. I wrote it down somewhere. But Rav Chaim Falaji says the same teretz, that her body was 14 years old, but her gilgul of Sarah was only 3. That's interesting. I thought it was a shtickle chiddush that you could become a gilgul after you're already alive. Usually you would think like, oh, this guy, he was a gilgul from this neshama from... Like it seems like she sort of switched neshamas or something. Like I don't know how these things work, but
that happens. That neshama of Sarah
joined together with her neshama. Yeah, something like that. I don't know exactly how it works.
It does happen.
It does happen. You know of a case of a guy. You're my neighbor.
Anyway, so it says, I'm perplexed. Why did he have to take the Batula out? You could have checked to see the Batula. And then let Yitzchak do that.
You're right.
Why do you have to take the Batula out?
So we're gonna discuss that in a moment. But first, we have a Yalkut Shemaini. Yalkut Shemaini in Parshas Chayei Sarah says a slightly different version of the story over here. In Yalkut Shemaini it says in the pasuk that when she was coming, Rivkah saw Yitzchak and she fell off the camel. Right? So vatipo me'al hagamal. Why? So Medrash says this is Yalkut Shemaini Remez Kuf Tes in Chayei Sarah. When she saw in Ruach HaKodesh that Esav is going to be a descendant of her, she started shaking and she fell off the camel. V'nasas mukas eitz. And she became a mukas eitz, that some foreign object took out her besulim. V'yata mimena dam besulim, and her dam besulim came out. Miyad Omar Kadosh Baruch Hu Gavriel, so Kadosh Baruch Hu said to the Malach Gavriel, Raid ushmor es hadam shelo yasriach v'lo yebaymum. Go and guard the blood so that it won't become putrid or whatever, and that the people won't think that there was a blemish in Rivkah. So then the Medrash says that when Yitzchak wanted to consummate his marriage with her, he didn't see that she had besulim. He suspected that she did something with Eliezer. So Amallah, Yitzchak said to her, "Besuloi sayich heichan hein, where are your besulim?" Amallah, she said to him, "Kishanafalti min agomol, nasasi mukas eitz." I fell off the camel, I became a mukas eitz, and the besulim came out over there. Amallah, he said, and you saw me fall off the camel. Right? Amallah, he said to her, "No, shekat midaberes. No, you're lying. Eliezer pagabich. Eliezer touched you when you were on the road. V'nishba aloi shalei nagaba." And she swore to him that Eliezer didn't touch him. Holchu, so they went off to investigate. Umatzu ha'etz tzavua dam, and they saw there was a tree over there at that place where she fell off the camel. There was a tree, and that tree was covered with blood. Miyad yada Yitzchak shehi tahira. So then Yitzchak knew that she was tahira. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, and then the Medrash finishes off. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, ma esa le'eved hazeh. What should I do for this eved? Shahaya chashud. The people suspected him about things that he didn't do. So Amar Malach ha'isharis hachnisuhu chai began Eden. The Malachim said to him, you should bring him alive into Gan Eden. And then the Medrash says, "Who Eliezer ben Nimrod?" That's Eliezer, the son of Nimrod. V'hu temegdelo. Yeah, Yitzchak Gan Eden. Yitzchak came back from Gan Eden, like we said after the kid that he went to Gan Eden to get healed, and he came back, and Eliezer went into Gan Eden alive. Okay, so that's what the Medrash says. So now Rabbi Leomi Izmer, I don't know why I keep quoting Rabbi Leomi Izmer, but in Medrash Talpias on the word zivug, Rabbi Leomi Izmer asks, according to Yalkut Shemaini, he didn't find her besulim, and he went and they found that it was on a tree. And we mentioned also Parak Tes. We sort of spoke about this when we talked about Kisei Adam. There were animals that were watching her dam so that nothing would happen to it, and those animals got the schus of Kisei Adam. the same idea. But they went and he saw it elsewhere. According to Pirkei Eliezer, it sounds like Shitaka did have Basulim. So Rabbi Eliezer in Medrash Talpias asks this question, and he says, you have to say that our Medrash was Makatzer. It abbreviated this whole story, and it means to be Meramis the story over here in Yaakov Shemini. I'm not convinced.
I think there's 2 points over here. First of all, what you said right now is going to contradict what it's going to say over here.
Oh, that's true.
You said he went to Gan Eden, here it's going to say.
Yeah.
And the second point is, if you said that he's the son of Nimrod, it means that he's from Cush and not from Canaan. Yeah?
Right.
Because Nimrod was from Cush, I think. Yeah?
Right.
Unless we're going to say that all Zerachim are called Canaan.
It could be.
He represents the.
Well, we never said that we never really said that he was from Canaan. We just said all of Adam are called Canaan. That's what we said.
He was from Bnei Chamlon,
yeah? Whatever, we'll see.
So the mother guarded the blood that it didn't congeal.
Right.
And then Rivka came in, he saw that the blood was still fresh.
I guess so.
And
Yeah.
realized that what
And he
happened-
realized that she was really okay.
Okay, fine.
Okay. So now, the Medrash says another interesting thing. It says, "B'kach hayu Yisrael noyagim lahaitzi es besulam be'etzba," and that was the minhag in Kal Yisrael to take out the besulam with the finger. Shlo yavoy litei safek, so you won't come into a safek, because maybe if you already consummate the marriage, then you find out afterwards that she was impure or whatever. So then you don't want to. You'll be over an isur or something. Shnemar v'lokach avi anara v'ima v'haitzius besulei v'gomer. It's a pasuk in Parshas Kiseitze by a case of Moitzi Shemra, where a guy marries a woman, and then he says, she wasn't a besula. So it says that the father and the mother, they bring out the Haitziu as besula. They take out the cloth and they say, this is the besula of my daughter, so to prove her purity. That's what it says over the pasuk. So the Midrash is saying that was the minhag in Klal Yisrael. Okay. So this line over here that's saying that was the minhag in Klal Yisrael is a very difficult thing to understand, because if you ever learn Maseches Ksubis, it's clear that was not the minhag in Klal Yisrael. Because Maseches Ksubis is all talking about, what happens if you marry a girl and then you do bia and then you realize that she didn't have besulim, so you have to figure out. So does that mean that she was mizana or she wasn't? Was it before the kiddushin or after the kiddushin? Maybe she was a chatan or whatever. There's different cases, especially on Daf Tas over there in Maseches Ksubis. It's a famous Daf of Gemara. So it seems pretty clear from the Gemara that this was not the minhag, and in fact, Taisus in Maseches Ksubis and Daf Daled, Gemara in Maseches Ksubis talks about something called Be'ilas Mitzvah. It's talking about a case where a guy gets married and then he becomes an Ovel before he's able to consummate whatever. The Gemara calls it Be'ilas Mitzvah. So why is it called Be'ilas Mitzvah? So Taisus says because it's a mitzvah because the pasuk says, because the Gemara says Ein isha kareses bris elamisha sa kli, that a woman only becomes especially kashur to a man that makes her into a vessel that she could become pregnant. The Gemara says that so the bir rishena makes it that a woman could become pregnant. The Rizal speaks a lot about this, that in the bir rishena that a man puts he calls it ruach the shavak ba'baila b'bir rishena. It's mavur from the Gemara and from other sources that there's like a dafka in it to have beer, not to take it out with the finger. Where does the Medrash say this from?
That's what Dr. the Lord to the blood, they Dr. did that.
Yeah.
Put him out so that the Dr.
Right. The daughters of Lot did that, but we don't do such things. So there's a sefer called Chilukim Shebein Anshe Mizrach Ubnei Eretz Yisrael. It's a sefer that it was written in the time of the Gaonim. It's called Chilukim Shebein Anshe Mizrach Ubnei Eretz Yisrael. So in that sefer, in Ois Mem, it says that the minhag was that Anshe Mizrach, people in the Mizrach, in the east, meaning Bavel, their minhag was they would do bia, and the minhag in Eretz Yisrael was that they would do it with a finger. So you see that already in the time of Chazal, the Gemara is going with the minhag in Bavel, and it seems like the Eliezer is going with the minhag in Eretz Yisrael. So there were different minhagim, I guess, in Klal Yisrael exactly how to do it. But we go with the minhag of the Gemara. We don't go with the minhag of the Medrash. And there's an interesting shtickle from the Medrash Ma'ar HaAfela, which is one of the early Teimani Midrashim. around the time of the Rambam, the Parshas Chayesara, he says about what it says over here in Pirkei Eliezer. He says, "Kol ha'oser davar zeh harehu bur v'achzaria." Anyone who does this is an ignoramus and a cruel person. Ve'ein by boishes upon him, and he doesn't have any embarrassment. Ve'ein chayeskin halacha min a medrash, and we don't pass in halacha from a medrash. So basically, we don't, the medrash says this, but we don't go like this. That's the point. Okay. I'm sorry for getting too graphic, but all right, let's go weiter.
So we have to deal with it.
Yeah. Zakan Beisai Shel Avraham Haya Avdei Eliezer. Zakan Beisai. The pasuk, if you look good in Parshas Chayesara, it never says that Eliezer was the one who got the shidduch for Yitzchak. It never says the name Eliezer. Who was it? It says that he was his eved, and it also calls him Zakan Beisai, the elder of his household. So who's the elder of his household? Zakan Beisai Shel Avraham Haya Avdei Eliezer. The elder of Avraham's household was his servant Eliezer. The Medrash says, Umayayin Haya Avdei. How is Eliezer the eved of Avraham? We're going to say in a moment that Eliezer is actually Oig Melech Bashan. So the Radal says that Oig Melech Bashan was Miyeser HaRefaim, from the leftovers of the Refaim, a strong, giant person. How did it come to be that he ended up being a slave to Avraham? Like, how did such a strong warrior ever become a slave? It doesn't. He wants to know where does that come from?
And also Moshe killed him.
Oh, so we're going to get to that also, hopefully. When Avraham Avinu was leaving Ur Kasdim, so all the Gedalei Adar, all the Choshev, prominent people in that generation came and they gave Avraham Avinu presents. But Ahmad Nimrod, and Nimrod got up, Kasav his Avdei Eliezer Avraham, and he wrote a shtar giving, like the mission Kedushin says that you could be kind of eved with a shtar. So Nimrod wrote a shtar, giving over his eved Eliezer to Avraham Avinu.
Previously, you said he was his son. Eliezer was.
Yes, in Yalkut Shemini it called him Eliezer ben Nimrod. Yes.
Okay, so over here we don't agree.
It's Machlek is a different midrashim.
He's saying that he's a slave, and he's saying that he's from the Reform, yeah?
Yeah.
If he's from the Reform, then he's not Mizar Chom, because the Reform were before Noach.
Right.
And they weren't Noach, yeah?
But so where did Nimrod have Eliezer as a slave from? So if Eliezer is Oig, so it says later on when we talk about the story of the Mabul in Parachav Gimel. So we're going to see that when Oig got saved by the Teva of Noach, so Noach basically made Oig swear that he's going to forever be an eved to the descendants of Noach. So that's how it came about that Oig was a slave to, let's say, Cham, and then when Cham died, Nimrod, Yarshanim, or whatever. So
Another interesting question: how did Oig survive such a flood? It says that the waters around the ark were cool,
right.
and Oig was in the water, was
holding on to the Teva, yeah.
So he was an Eved to Avodim, and he was an Eved to Chom.
Right, Eved of Adim he Elachad.
Canaan was an Eved to the other sons of Chom.
Right.
So it sounds like he's a very low level of Avdus.
And Eved to Ramash Eved, yeah. Okay.
You asked previously, how is it that a Gibber became the Eved?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a problem. I mean, the Shratas are bigger than the white people, but they have
This is being recorded.
Oh.
When Eliezer did a chesed to the son of to Yitzchak, the son of Avraham Avinu, Avraham Avinu freed him. He used to be his slave, and now he freed him. It's interesting because last week we said that it's the same thing. If we go back and try to remember why we're talking about this, so we're talking about this. We're bringing this whole story because we're talking about people who did chesed in regard to chasanos, just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu did chesed for Adam and Chava. So we're talking about other cases of people who did chesed in regard to marriage. So just that's why we're talking about this again. So Kishigama chesed in Yitzchak v'nai, when Eliezer did chesed to Yitzchak by helping him get a shidduch, Haitzir lecheres, Avraham Avinu, or maybe it was Yitzchak, let him go free. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him his reward in this world b'shvil shelo yehei schar l'rishoyim ba'olam haba, so that there won't be schar for rishoyim ba'olam haba, like we spoke about last week and the week before, that the way a Kadosh Baruch Hu does it is, if a person is a tzaddik and he does something bad, so he gets punished in this world, so he gets a schar in olam haba. If a person is a rasha and he does something good, so he gets a schar in olam hazeh, so olam haba he'll get punishment. So Kadosh Baruch Hu, to this Eved, who apparently was a rasha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him his schar in olam hazeh, b'shul shelo yehei schar l'rishoyim ba'olam haba. What was that schar? What was the schar that Hashem gave to Eliezer? V'kiru el melech. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made Eliezer into a melech. V'hu oig melech Bashan, and he is oig melech Bashan. There's a lot of different questions over here. We'll discuss some of them, but we're not going to have a chance to speak about like all the different nekudas about oig and Eliezer, who is oig and who is Eliezer. One question is like this. There's another interesting source about this. There's in Mesachas Seifrim. Towards the end of Mesachas Seifrim, it says also the same thing, that Eliezer, Eved Avraham, is oig melech Bashan. It says that what happened was that one time Avraham Avinu screamed at Eliezer / oig. He screamed at him, and his tooth fell out. And Avraham Avinu took his tooth, and he made from that. It says Yesh Emrim, he made a chair. Yesh Emrim, he made a bed. And I found that the Rivkah says Yesh Emrim, he made a wall. So Avraham Avinu took that tooth and he made up the whole thing from it. So I once asked a question like this. Over here it says that Avraham Avinu freed him for helping find the shidduch for Yitzchak. Over there it says that he screamed at him and his tooth fell out. Now there's a halacha called shein va'ayin by an Eved. If you knock out your Eved's tooth or his eye, he automatically goes free. Eved Knani. Alright? So how did Avraham Avinu free Eliezer? He should have went out with shein va'ayin when he was his slave and he got his tooth fell out. When Avraham Avinu screamed at him, he should go out. So really, it's not such a good question, because if you look in the Gemara in Kedushin, Chaf Daled and Beis, the Gemara is also over there talking about Eved, and it basically talks about a case where a guy, let's say you go up behind somebody and you go boom, and he didn't really see it coming. He gets shocked, and he goes like this, and he hits his face into the wall, and he smashes his face. Are you chayav or pater to pay for his damages? So the halacha is that you're chayav b'dinei shemayim, but you're pater b'dinei adam, because it's called a grama. So in such a case, it seems like from the Gemara over there, that in a case of grama as well, an Eved won't go free either. So Avraham is screaming at him and him getting scared and having his tooth fall out. That's not called knocking out his tooth or his eye or his tooth. So he didn't go free from that. That's why I wanted to understand. There's a Rashash over there in Kedushin that has some questions on this. But that's basically the idea of that.
Maybe Baruch she went free, but that's when she was ever.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Huh?
I don't know what that means. What do you mean?
That means that Baruch he wasn't Bakusha to Avraham. He had his own Messiah. And then afterwards, he became his own person by becoming a free Eved. There's a very interesting thing. It says that by the Akedah.
That by what?
By the Akedah.
The Akedah, yeah.
The Sarah was in Hebron.
Right.
And the Akedah was in Yerushalayim. How did she know what happened?
Right.
So apparently, that's to prove that she was able to tell her what was going on, because Og was telling her.
Right.
The Og, right? He was telling her what was going on.
Right.
So Og must have been Eliezer.
Why?
Because Eliezer was there, I saw it.
Eliezer was with Avraham. Right, I hear.
I have two problems with that.
That's a good question.
I have two problems with that. First of all, Og was a giant, so he was able to see everything.
Right.
Second of all, if that was him, it says that he told the Sarah not to frighten or not to...
Because he wanted to marry her.
I think so, yeah?
Yeah.
He wanted to cause problems. So how would Avraham then give him a mission to find Yitzchak Shidduch? This is the kind of person...
Well, maybe he didn't realize or something, I don't know. There's a lot of places where Oig sort of comes up. There's another where it says by when Lot was captured, there was a war between the 4 kings and the 5 kings, and Lot was captured. It says, Vayava Apalit, Vayaged Lavram Ha'ivri. The refugee from the war came and he told Avraham Avinu that Lot was kidnapped. Right? So some of Farshim say that this Palit was Oig. because he was polit, meaning refugee from the Mabul. So some Midrashim say that that's Oig. And then what was Avraham Avinu's response? He sends the response of Avraham Avinu was that he sent Eliezer to go fight and try to help bring back to go fight the five kings, to go fight the four kings to help bring back light. Right? So it's a shtickle funny that like if Oig is Eliezer and you put these two things together, it's like Oig, who's Eliezer, came and told Avraham Avinu about it, and then Avraham Avinu go and sent him to go fight it. Someone asked me this as a question. It's a shtickle question. The Pirkei of Eliezer happens to be on the sense that when it says Vayavaya Palit, it's not talking about Oig. It's actually talking about, I believe, it was the Malach Michal. It was for sure Malach. I think it was Malach Michal. We're going to see it later on when we get to the times of Avraham Avinu. We're still holding by Adam Rishon, but I forgot what parak it's in. But I seem to remember that Pirkei of Eliezer says that it was Michal. In other places, I saw once there's a Sefer Chemdas Yamim, from Rav Shalom Shabazi from Teman. So he writes, why is Oig called Oig? Because Vayavaya Palit, when he came to tell Avraham Avinu that light was captured, so it says in Targum Yonasan that Avraham Avinu was baking matzahs because it was Pesach time. So Avraham Avinu was baking matzahs. So matzahs are called ugais sometimes. So that's why he's called Oig, because he came when Avraham Avinu was baking matzahs. It's called ugais. It's an interesting word.
So I misquoted the Medrash.
You misquoted the Medrash?
Yeah, it was talking about the war of the four kings, not with Akid. Like you said, because he wanted sorrows, he wanted Avraham to fight them, so he should get killed.
But I think there's also such a thing about by the kid. I'm not sure.
It's a contradiction. It could be he told Avraham that, and then Avraham wanted to show who's the boss. He said, okay, now you're going to come to the war with me.
Right. So that's another point over here. And as we're reading this, I just realized why I don't think this is such a question. But another point is like this. It says in this week's parsha, Parshas Chukas, it's mamish at the end of the parsha, that after Moshe Rabbeinu went and fought Sichon Melech Cheshbon and he defeated them, so then Vayetze Oig Melech Bashan the Krasenu to go fight us, and Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Al Tirois, don't be scared, just like you fought and you defeated Sichon Melech Hamori. Now you're going to go and you're going to fight Oig Melech Bashan and you're going to defeat him too. Don't be scared. And Moshe Rabbeinu went and Moshe Rabbeinu killed Oig Melech Bashan. That's what it says in the Pesukim. So the Das Kenim asks like this. That's the Kenim in Parshas Chayesar. He brings the Pirkei of Eliezer. In this print it says Pirkei Vav, which is a typo. It's supposed to say Pirkei Zayin. He brings the Pirkei of Eliezer and says it sounds like from Pirkei of Eliezer that Oig / Eliezer was a good person. Yet Moshe Rabbeinu killed him. So that sounds like he was a bad person. So what was he? He was a tzaddik or he was a rasha? And also we mentioned the Medrash, we said the Yalkut Shemaini, that Eliezer was one of the people that went in alive to Gan Eden. That sounds like he's a good guy. So if Eliezer is Oig, so he went alive into Gan Eden, like someone just asked this before, Moshe Rabbeinu killed him. He didn't go alive into Gan Eden. If he's Oig.
He's Ogun.
Maybe he went to alive into Gan Eden and then he came back. Maybe he went to Gan Eden and he came back.
Could be.
He took a trip for a few days.
So that's the Kenim's question. I don't know if it's such a question because even Pirkei of Eliezer says that if you read it carefully the way we read it, Pirkei of Eliezer also says that Oig was Rasha. Because it says that Hashem gave him Ischar and Olam Hazeh so that there won't be Ischar L'Rashaim Ba'olam Haba. So Pirkei of Eliezer also says he was a Rasha. So I'm not sure what that's the Kenim is saying. Yeah, he was a Rasha. Okay, clearly he was a loyal servant of Avraham Avinu. So Avraham Avinu used him for different missions. But it sounds like he was talking about Rasha. Even Pirkei of Eliezer.
And he's called Eliezer, which sounds lehefech. Sounds like he's Eliezer. He's helping Hashem.
Okay, could be. No. But the Das Kenim takes a different approach. The Das Kenim says a different answer. We're misunderstanding something here. You have to know that there's two people called the Oig Melech Bashan. That's what he says. The Das Kenim from the Bali Tesis.
The real OG stand up.
Yeah, well, the real Oig Melech Bashan, please stand up.
If you stand up, you won't see only through a telescope.
There's two Oig Melech. It says that every king of Bashan was called Oig, named after the first one. So our Eliezer, he was like a good guy, and he became Oig Melech of Bashan the first. And then every person who became the king of Bashan, he got the name Oig. And the Oig Melech of Bashan, what? Like he says, like Parah. Every Oig Melech of Bashan, the Oig Melech of Bashan, time of Moshe Rabbeinu, he was a Rasha, Moshe Rabbeinu killed him. So one was a tzaddik, one was Rasha, and it's talking about two different people. And we find this by Parah, we find that could be by Avimelech. The Ramban is mistopic about if every king of Plishtim was called Avimelech.
Can't be, because you find in Sefer
Sefer, what?
You find in Sefer Shmuel, the kings not being called Avimelech.
Okay.
There's a Ochosh Gas. You don't see him being called.
Yeah, it's Gas, but it could be as Gror. I don't know. I'm not sure.
It sounds like Gas was the only city in Plishtim which had a king.
It could be that was a later time or whatever, but
It could be the capital city moved from Gror to Gas because Bnei Yisrael conquered.
I know what Gror is. I know that the Plishtim had 5 cities.
But Gror was near Beersheba, but Bnei Yisrael conquered all that area. So it could be the capital of Plishtim moved to Gas.
Well, there's 5 Plishtim cities, right? There's
Ekron,
Gash, Asa, right. So I don't know which one is Gror.
Gror wasn't one of them.
Gror is a city or it's a region? I'm not sure.
I think it was a city. Plishtim used to be bigger. It used to include also, I think, near Beersheba. It used to be much bigger. Bnei Yisrael conquered most of the Plishtim, but they left over 5 cities.
Right. That's how it was.
When Bnei Yehuda was supposed to conquer that region, they were supposed to fight it together with Bnei Shimshon, but they left over 5 cities. These are the 5 cities they left over. And
Chamisha Sarnei Plishtim.
yeah, and they're thrown at the side of Bnei Yisrael when these invasions.
Right.
Also, Avraham made Eliezer take it out when he went to made a shua.
Yeah.
So if Eliezer was a Russia, you don't give a Russia to make a shua. You know what I mean?
Why?
Why?
Because he might lie.
Because otherwise you just can break it. A shua is something that gives somebody power to do the right thing.
Could be right. I hear.
So therefore, I think that Eliezer was like a virginity. He was
Sometimes good, sometimes bad. You want to say? Yeah. Also, you really also can answer the Das the Kingdom's question by saying originally he was good. In the time of Avraham, he was good, and 500 years later, in the time of or not 5, less than 500, 400 years later, in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, he was a bad. He went off the derech. We said by Yochanan Kohen Gadol, it was a Kohen Gadol for 80 years, and then he became a tzaddik, right? The Gemara says, "Al tamin ba'atzvacha yoyim ma'ischa." So even if a tzaddik like that could go off, so it's not. I don't think it's so sure.
Somebody who becomes a king gains power.
The power corrupts people. Yeah, I hear. Now Rashi in this week's parasha says something interesting, and with this we're going to finish and go weiter. Rashi says when Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, "Don't be scared of Oig," because Al Tira Yisai. So he says Moshe Rabbeinu was scared of Oig because Oig was the one who told Avraham Avinu about Lot being kidnapped, and that's Oig. And in the schus of that, maybe he would get saved. So Rashi is going with that mahalach that the palit is Oig, not like Pirkei Eliezer, and Rashi is saying not like what we're saying over here in Pirkei Eliezer. If Rashi held like Pirkei Eliezer, so he should have said better. Moshe was scared that Oig had his schus of finding a shidduch for Yitzchak. But he said no. He was scared that he told Avraham that Lot was kidnapped. Finding the schus for Yitzchak is a bigger schus. So you have to know what Rashi exactly held. Well, it sounds like from Rashi that it was one person also, not like the Das Kingdom.
So what did Hashem tell Moshe to make him feel better that he could kill us?
What?
To kill him anyway. Why? Because he's a bad guy. Even though he got the marriage.
The truth is that Oig came out to attack the Jews, and the thing was that Moshe Rabbeinu was scared of him, and Hashem saying, "Don't be scared." It's not that Hashem told him go and attack him. He's saying, "Don't be scared. You'll be able. You can defend yourself, and you'll win."
Right.
It's not that Hashem was necessarily telling him to go out and kill him. He was telling him to go defend yourself, and that would necessitate killing him if need be, you know.
But the man who said it, gives you an idea how big oil might be
A sword? Yeah.
15 meters.
Yeah, 10 amas.
And he jumped 15 meters into the air.
Yeah.
He hit
his ankle. Yeah, by the ankle, I think it was.
But can you imagine how huge this thing was?
Yeah, it's like more in the last parak of Brachos, the beginning of the parak over there. Fine, let's go right there. Rabbi says, Shiva Simei Mishta Me'ain Anu Lamedim. We said earlier in the parak we wanted to learn out the Indian of Sheva Brachos from Yaakov Avinu. Now, and then we said last week that some people tell you, no, you can't learn from Yaakov Avinu because that's before Matan Torah. So here we're going to say another source for the Indian of Sheva Brachos. We learn it out from Shimshon. Shimshon went out to Eretz Plishtim and he found himself a nice wife and he married her and he made a party for 7 days of Yemei Mishta and Simcha. Shneimar says the pasuk, Vayihi kiroisam Yisrael vayikru shoshem erim vayu itay. That's the pasuk over there in Sefer Sheft. That he took his friends and they were with him and they made a party. And he said to them, Mahu itay was mean itay with him, oichlim b'sheisim imay. With him meaning they were eating and drinking with him. Shneimar says the pasuk, and it says further in the pasuk, Vayem Shimon achuda nolachem chida. I'm going to offer you guys a riddle, and at the end of the pasuk says, Im hagid tagid li shiva simei mishnah. Go tell me the answer to this riddle within 7 days. So he was partying for 7 days, and he gave them 7 days to tell them to answer the riddle. For 3 days they weren't able to figure out the answer to the riddle, and then they asked his wife, and she gave them the answers, and his wife gave away all his secrets. Fine. So that's another source for the Indian of Sheva Brachos. Now this is one of the most famous lines in the entire Sefer Pirkei Eliezer. A Chosson is like a king. If you ever heard such an expression, A Chosson this is the source of it. A Chosson is like a king. There's a minig in Klal Yisrael, I don't know where this comes from, but there's a minig in Klal Yisrael that when the Chosson comes out after the Chir Yichud and comes to sit down by the Suda, so everyone sings a song, Vahi Bishur Melech B'Sasei Rosh Hayam Yachad Shiftei Yisrael. Right? So when the Chosson comes out, Vahi Bishur Melech. Oh, Yeshurun is Klal Yisrael. Vahi Bishur Melech. There's the Melech in Klal Yisrael. Oh, there's a Melech. So a king is like a Melech. A Chosson is like a Melech. What does it mean that a Chosson is like a Melech? This is mamish the source of this Indian. Just like a king doesn't go out into the marketplace alone, so too a Chosson doesn't go out into the marketplace alone. The Radal brings two pshatim. Is either it's because of the mazikin, so mazikin try to attack a Chosson, so you're supposed to have a shamer with a Chosson, or the pshat is because it's the covet. It's not lefi kvoidei to walk by himself. It's just like a melech. It's not lefi kvoidei to walk by himself. Just like a king wears royal clothes, begodim of kavod, so too a Chosson wears royal clothes during his Sheva Brachos. That's why in Eretz Yisrael there's a minig that people wear a frock when they get married, and they wear a frock for Shiva Simei Mishnah, a big day covered, like a begodim of a melech. Just like a king, everyone praises the king, everyone says good things about the king. So to a Chosson, everyone is praising him during the Sheva Simei Mishnah. But all Sheva Brachos, everyone's speaking about all the praises of the Chosson by all the speeches or whatever. And the last one, the fifth one, just like a king, his face is shining like the face of the light of the sun. So too a Chosson, a groom, his face is shining like the light of the sun. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk. This pasuk is talking about the sun. It says in the pasuk in Tilim Yutes in Perek Shira says that Hashamayim Misapim Kavod Kel is that's what the sun says. The sun. So one of the things about the sun, it says in Tilim, the sun is v'hu kechosson yosef michupasei. The sun is like a Chosson coming out of his chuppah. So just like the sun is shining, so when we're comparing the sun to a Chosson coming out of his chuppah, so too a Chosson when he's coming out of his chuppah, his face is shining. That's what it says in the Medrash.
The Rebbe said that the color is like the moon.
The color is like a moon. We spoke about that idea before also.
The moon receives the light from the sun.
Yeah.
She doesn't have light of her own.
We said once, we said this in one of the earlier pakim. We said the word Levana, Mepharshim said the word Levana is Reshi Tevis Besula Nisas Leia Maravi. Think about that. Okay. The Radal brings the Ramban and the Ran and other Rishonim in Mesachas Ksubis. They say a sixth thing. It says Ma HaMelech Mishta V'Simcha Lefanav Kol Yamim Af A Chosson Kol Shivas Yemei HaMishta. Just like a melech is always having a banquet every day and having parties and being a bit simcha his whole life, so to a chosson during his Shivas Yemei HaMishta after he gets married, he's having constant banquets in his honor and being a b'simcha. The Bayis Gadol adds another one. The tour in Siman Samech Daled, when we're talking about the mitzvahs of Sheva Brachos. So the tour in Siman Samech Daled, he brings B'Shem Pirkei Eliezer another nukuda. The Ma HaMelech Eino Eisim Milacha, Af A Chosson Eino Eisim Milacha. Just like a king doesn't go out to work, so a chosson is not allowed to go out to work during the Shivas Yemei HaMishta. It's interesting if you look over there in the Shulchan Aruch in Even HaEzer Siman Samech Daled. So I'll read you the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah, and you tell me if you guys notice anything funny. The Shulchan Aruch says like this: Hanoise Bisula, a man who marries a Bisula, Tzarich L'smayach Ima Shivas Yamim. He has to be happy with her for 7 days. Shlo Yas Melacha. He won't go to work. V'lo Yisav Yitan Rishuk, and he won't go do business in the marketplace. Rather, he's going to eat and drink and be happy with her. Beinim hu imu bachar, beinim hu almon. Whether it's his first marriage or it's not his first marriage, fine. So the Ramah adds, V'chosson aser basiyas malacha v'aser latzes zechida b'shuk. And a chosson, it's aser for him to do malacha, and it's aser for him to go out to the marketplace. Anything funny over here? The Mechaber said that a chosson lo yasa malacha. A chosson has to be he has to be happy rejoice with his wife for 7 days. He's not allowed to do malacha. And then the Ramah adds, the chosson aser basiyas malacha. A chosson is not allowed to do malacha. The Mechaber already said a chosson is not allowed to do malacha. What's the Ramah coming to add?
Repetition.
It's repetition. So the Bishmul says there's machlokes of it. It's like this. According to the Mechaber, the reason why a chosson is not allowed to do malacha during Sheva Brachos is because what he says. If you marry a Hanoise Bisula, you have to be happy with her for 7 days, and as a result of that, because you have an obligation to be happy with her, you're not allowed to go out to work. So says the Bishmul, according to the Mechaber, if she's moichel, she says, I let you go out to work. I don't care. I give up on my right to make you stay home and be happy with me. Then he's allowed to do it. Comes along the Ramah, and the Ramah says, no. Aser basiyas malacha. Chosson aser basiyas malacha. What's the source of it? The Ramah in the documentation over here in the parentheses. Source Pirkei Eliezer Perek Tazayin. So what's the source? The reason is because chosson is doimel melech, and just like a melech doesn't work, a chosson is not allowed to work. So even if the woman is moichel, he's still not allowed to go out to work. That's what Bishmul says. So he says machlokes. So according to Bishmul, it's machlokes Ashkenazim and Sfaradim. If you get married, first you marry a girl, it's her first time getting married, and she says you're allowed to go out to work. Are you allowed to go out to work? According to the Mechaber, you're allowed. According to the Ramah, you're still not allowed to. That's what Bishmul says. It's a big chiddush.
He's bringing halakha from
well, no, the Ran in Ksubis already brings this Pirkei Eliezer, and the Ramah is just going with the Ran. But yeah,
still that also
yeah.
But a melech ain't moichel a couple good.
Well, can't be moichel in his covered. No, but we're talking about her being moichel on her right to keep him home.
Yeah, but that's not the cover of a melech.
Oh, I hear. You're saying if it's a cover, right? And if Melech ain't covered in mochel, she can't be mochel on his cover. Mochel al kavod means he can't be mochel on his own cover usually. Right. But so the Bishmul says that the Chor will be a machlokes Ashkenazim and Sfaradi. But L'maisa the Birkei Yosef, the Mechidah, who is a Sfaradi, he argues on the Bishmul. He says no. According to everyone, he's not allowed to go out to work. So that's it. We'll just finish off over here with Rabbi Yomi Izmir again. Last stickle for Rabbi Yomi Izmir today. Merish Talpios This is on the words Chosson v'Kala. He brings down the Pirkei of Eliezer about Chosson Daimel HaMelech, and he says, the Medrash says it about 5 things, Chosson Daimel HaMelech. He says, I want to tell you 18 ways that a Chosson is Daimel HaMelech. And I'll read it to you. Omer HaMa'aseh. Uma HaMelech nimcholam like kol avneisav, av Chosson kein amru chacham zurchen l'bracha. Just like a king, when he becomes king, all his affairs are forgiven. So to a Chosson, when he gets married, all his affairs are forgiven. Like the Rashi brings the parsha by Machlas Bas Yishmael, when Esav married Machlas Bas Yishmael, so Machlas is lashon of Mechila, his affairs got forgiven. Just like a king makes, I'll just read it in English. Just like a king makes decrees and everyone and other people have to listen to it, so too a Chosson, Shiva Simei Mishnah, the king, the Chosson says, pass this, so everyone goes and passes it, brings him whatever he needs. Just like a king is amongst a lot of people, so too a Chosson during Sheva Brachos is amongst a lot of people. Just like a melech is he can sort of show off on himself and show how rich he is or whatever, so too a Chosson is allowed to show off on himself to his kala to try to show how choshev he is. So just like a king has beer with his wife and then he separates and he goes to his own bed, so too a Chosson boilu perish, because we hold that we're choshesh for dam besulim, that kilo it's also so Chosson is boilu perish. A melech has multiple wives, so he has like his own room and then he goes and visits each wife in her own room. Just like a king, people they blow trumpets and they sing songs to him day and night. So to a Chosson, just like a king, everyone serves him. So to a Chosson, just like a king, everyone's giving him brachos. So to a Chosson, just like a king, he sits at the head of the table. So to a Chosson, by Sheva Brachos, he sits at the head of the table. Just like a king, people give him presents. So to a Chosson, just like a king, he's supposed to give a lot of tzedakah to poor people. So to a Chosson, just like a king writes 2 Sifrei Torah, so to a Chosson is supposed to get 2 aliyahs. The minute the Chosson gets an aliyah on the Shabbos before he gets married, and he gets an aliyah on the Shabbos after he gets married. So just like a king has 2 Sifrei Torahs, so to a Chosson is 2 Sifrei Torahs. Just like a king, people dance in front of him and they bring candles because the candles is covered. So to a Chosson, you bring candles and you light special candles for him, and people dance in front of him. Just like a Chosson, just like a melech changes his clothes constantly, he's wearing brand new clothing. He's only wearing new clothing. So to a Chosson, just like a king has, when he makes a party, so the men are supposed to be in one place, the women are supposed to be in another place. Like Achashverosh, we spoke about in Perek Mem Tes, that Achashverosh, when he made a party, so there was one party for the men, and Vashti made a separate party for the women. So too, by a Chosson, when they make Sheva Brachos, especially by a Chasana, they're supposed to have the men separately from the women. The Mefarshim even speak out that if the men and women are not separate, you're not supposed to say, by benching, you're not supposed to say Sha'simcha b'ma'oinoi, because when the Satan is Mekatrig, then you can't say Simcha b'ma'oinoi, because there's no Simcha. Just like a melech, everyone comes to visit him, and everyone shel b'shleimai, they greet him. So to a Chosson, everyone comes to visit him and they greet him. Just like a melech, his wife dresses up with all the different types of jewelry and all the different types of ornaments. So to a Chosson, just like a king sleeps till 3 hours into the day, a Chosson also gets to wake up late in Sheva Brachos. I'm not saying it, it's Rebellion Israel. So you see that there's 18 things that a Chosson is daimel melech, simin l'davar, ben shreina ser l'chopa. And then he goes on for pages and pages. I'm not going to tell you all the things that he says, but he goes on for pages and pages about why is a Chosson daimel to a king. These are examples, but like what's the underlying idea? So one idea he says is that because a king, what makes a king into a king? You wear a crown. And we said that it's a pasuk in the Mishnah, I think it says, Eishes chayil ateres baila. And Eishes chayil is a crown to her husband. So when do you get your crown? You only get a crown when you get married. There's a Gemara in Gittin. It's a pasuk where I forgot what it's pasuk in. The Gemara in Gittin says that there used to be a minhag that a Chosson would wear a very fancy crown. And then when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, so they were mevatel this minhag. They said, no, you're not. The pasuk says, Haser ha-mitznefes harem ha-Torah. Haser ha-mitznefes. The mitznefes is what the kohen used to wear when they would do the avodah. Actually, it's what the kohen gadol used to wear when they would do the avodah. So Haser ha-mitznefes, when the mitznefes was removed, Harem haTorah, lift off your crown. Meaning the Chosson shouldn't wear a crown anymore when he gets married. So we don't have that minig, but there's an Indian that a Chosson is like a Melech. When he gets married, his wife is like a crown to his head. So only.
Well, it doesn't say it in Sheva Brachos, somehow Melech, right? He read that on.
Right? He got it on right. Chazal tells us it's a Mishnah in Tainus, I think.
Yeah.
Another nukuda he says is that a Chosson, a person only could properly learn Torah when he gets married. Until that, not. As the Gemara says in Yavamis, in the 6th parak, it says, Kol shari b'lei isha, shari b'lei Torah. He's living, a man who lives without an isha is living without Torah. And we said that Torah is like above the kings. We mentioned a pasuk in Mishlei also. We mentioned this pasuk in which parak was it? I think it was in parak Ches. It said, in parak Ches. It says the pasuk, that the Torah said about itself, "Bi malachim yamluchu." Through me, through the Torah, malachim become kings. Because we said that Hashem was in parak Gimel. In Parag Gimel, it said that Hashem asked the Torah whether he should create the world, and the Torah said yeah. And we said that a melech is someone that the nation makes him into a melech by accepting his malchus. So the Torah made Hashem into a melech. Bi malachim yamuchu. So the Torah makes things into a melech, and the Torah makes a person into a melech. Chazal tell us, man melach, also Gemara in Gittin, man melachi rabbanan, who are kings. Kings refer to rabbanan. So rabbanan, so you can only be masik that darga in Torah that you man melachi rabbanan when a person is married. So getting married makes a person into a king. I remember when I was getting married, so I put out a kuntrus for my chasana. So I got a haskama from Yitzchak Sorotskin from Lakewood. So he wrote in his haskama, he wrote that it says in the pasuk, I think he brought it from the there's a sefer called Rebbeinu Bali Tesis Al Torah. So it says in the pasuk, Lo toiv hayes adam levadai es Eliezer kenegda. It's not good for a person to be by himself. Es Eliezer kenegda. I'm going to make for him an Ezer, a helper. That's what Hashem said before he created Chava. So it says Loi toiv hayes adam levadai. So it says in the Rebbeinu Bali Tesis, Loi toiv ein toiv ela Torah. Shneimar ki lekach toiv nasat lechem Torah atzal zevu. So the way he understood it is that a person can only be masig a darga of taiv, meaning a darga in Torah when he gets married. Loy taiv hayes. You're loy taiv. You're not with the Torah. You're not on that darga of Torah when a person is by himself. That's where Yitzchak Sorotskin wrote. It's the same idea over here.
In November, the king is supposed to have a Torah by himself all the time.
Right. That's what we said. A king writes 2 sefer Torahs, one to hold, and one because everyone in the Klal Yisrael is buchav to write a sefer Torah. That's what I meant. Just one last nukuda. There's a famous idea. It's a minig that's sort of catching on in the last 30 years. That when the Chosson and Kala when the Chosson at least comes down the aisle to the chuppah, so everyone stands up for him. So why does everyone stand up for him? So Rav Ovadia Yosef in Yabia Omer, Chelik Vav, Even Ezra Siman Ches has a whole tshuva. Someone asked him, is there an Indian to stand up for Chosson when he comes down to the chuppah or not? So Rav Ovadia Yosef Kedarkai has tons and tons of sources about it. But he brings from one of the svarim called Knesset G'dayla of Chaim Benisti, who writes that the Indian is what we're talking about. Chosson Daimel Melech. And when a Melech comes by, you're supposed to stand for a Melech. It's more in Kiddushin that when a Melech comes, you have to stand up for a Melech, for Nasi, for a Melech, Kol Sheken for a Melech. So when a Melech comes, you stand up for a Melech. So Chosson Daimel Melech. So you have to stand up for a Chosson. The other Mefarshim, the Knesset G'dayla himself elsewhere writes a different reason why you stand up for a king, for a Chosson when he comes by, because there's a mission Bikurim that when they used to come to bring Bikurim in Yerushalayim, so as each city came, all the people that as they walked by, so all the people that were working would come and stand up and give them kavod. Right? So there's the Indian, the Bartanur in the Mesechus Bikurim Perek Gimel Mishnah Gimel says that there's the Indian that when a person is going on his way to do a mitzvah, he's supposed to stand up and give kavod to him. So the Knesset G'dayla also writes that that's why you stand up for Chosson when he comes down, because he's on his way to do it. His Purvu, mitzvah Kiddushin, whatever exactly the mitzvah is. The nafkamina between these two answers is: do you have to stand up when the kala comes down? Because if it's Chosson down the Malach, so we find Chosson, we never find a kala down the Malka. There's no Indian, the Parsha doesn't ever find the Gemara that there's an in of covered Malka. So maybe you don't have to stand up for kala. But if the reason is because they're going to do a mitzvah, so Kala also, someone's going to do a mitzvah, whatever exactly the mitzvah is. So interesting. Even the Knesset Gedela says that the minig, I forgot, he said like in Salonika he says the minig in the Constantinople was to stand up, and the minig I think it was in Salonika not to stand up. Different places, but he said really everyone should stand up. Different people do. Apparently, Rav Moshe Feinstein didn't stand up. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky did. There's different things about it. But it's not an interesting concept over here that has to do with our Pirkei Eliezer. And I think we've finally finished the parak. And thank you for coming. Have a good Shabbos.
Thank you.